All that bragging.
Okay. Stand for pledge. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, where are we at here?
I'm going to do
Public
I have to do a
participation?
call for roll call.
Yeah.
Mrs. Grove,
Here.
Ms. Joy,
Here.
Mrs. Lebudzick,
Here.
Mr. Malkowski,
Here.
Mrs. Lammel, absent, Mrs. Petropoulos,
Here.
and Mrs. Salzer.
Here. Okay, public participation.
Yeah.
Anybody like-
And just to introduce our guests, we have Megan Knopfnagel, principal at Ridge Central, and we have Emily Geiger here this evening.
Hello, Emily.
Any public participation?
No? Okay,
All right.
now, Dr.
Good.
Thorns has something to,
Yeah, so before we, and I'm gonna mute, could you mute yourself? and I'll-
Myself.
So before we go into closed session, obviously, I'm sure most of you watched the news, unfortunately, today, about the school shooting in Texas, which is always, it's hard to watch as an educator. It's hard to watch as a parent, as a student. It's the worst nightmare of something that can happen in schools. Just starting off, obviously, our thoughts and our prayers are definitely with the students, the schools, the families down there. It's also one of those events that really reminds you just to be vigilant. It's something that thankfully we haven't had anything around here, not only in here, but like the state, in a while. And it's one of those things that you always just kind of have to remain vigilant of who is around and what your policies are. One of the few laws that I thought Illinois passed in the last couple of years that was a good one was that you now have to meet with your police and fire once a year. You have a very specific agenda that you have to have. And our meeting's usually like the second Wednesday of June. So we have that set up already. But it's just that reminder to everyone to just kind of be on the lookout and to be watching each other's backs. And if you see something, you need to tell people. Already reached out to kind of our police department today and just wanted to touch base and make sure we're good to go. But I know for parents, especially when you see something like that and you have young kids, you kind of pause and say, am I sending them to school tomorrow? And we do everything we can to make sure this is as safe of an environment as possible. And we will continue to do that and revise and remind people of what their responsibilities are. And so again, just really want to make sure our thoughts and prayers are with them. And that's not something anyone should ever have to go through. So,
I'd like to add to that.
okay.
Over the years, we have changed our entrance system and how we get to school and everything. I mean, just like when you come to the school board, that door is locked until right before it's time. I mean, that's just for us. But they have changed things over the years. I could tell you how many times there's been improvements to our entry system. Configurations changing. And if you go to other schools, it might be different than ours, but they're always changing too and trying to keep up to date on the newest things. And then the police train at our schools too, so they know our schools really well. They train here at least once a year, right?
Yeah, it's usually over spring break, and those
Right.
plans are not something you don't share with the public because it's not
No.
something that anyone should know except those people who have to do it for security reasons. But I think it is important that people are aware that they are constantly looked at and revised and trying to put the best things in place. So.
Yeah. And anytime anybody comes up with an idea or sees something that might be feasible for our school, please bring it up. It's always worth at least looking at. Whether or not we do it, it's another thing. I mean, it just depends, but it might be something we haven't heard of or we haven't done yet. And so please, if you think of something, see something, hear about something, please bring it up. And today there's not a lot, we don't have a lot of information yet, how the kids got to school, what the entry system was like. There was a lot of things that we don't know yet. It's just a horrible. I can't even think about being one of those parents. I remember thinking about that when my kids are young, and now we got grandkids that are young. It's like, I can't even think about it.
Mhm.
It's just so horrific. So we'll have to wait. And if that's all it's gonna be on TV for the next couple of days, unfortunately. So,
All right.
okay.
We are looking for a motion to go into closed session for the discussion of the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of a specific employee of the public body. If I could get a motion.
Sorry.
Mrs. Lebudzic,
Aye.
Mrs. Lammle. Absent. Mr. Malkowski.
Aye.
Ms. Joy,
Aye.
Mrs. Petropoulos,
Aye.
Mrs. Grove,
Aye.
and Mrs. Salzer.
Aye.
Okay,